Hey nerds, Jared Bear here. Listen, today's a little bit of a story time, talking about some card games, right? You know, growing up, I was massively into Yu-Gi-Oh! Here recently, I've been into Pokemon card game after all these years of playing the games. But there's a one important thing in between there, and that is Magic the Gathering, right? So I want to share this little story with you guys. Way back, aka like 5 or 6 years ago, when I worked at a company that rhymed with GameStop. You know, before that tragedy happened. One morning, they had us come in on a Sunday, right? It was a Sunday morning. Our store didn't open until about 11 a.m. or noon, and they had us come in. It was like 9 or 10 a.m. There's a huge announcement going on for something. So here we are. It's a nice rainy day, just beautiful setting outside. And we come inside the store. The lights are off. We have the big monitor up. If you've ever been inside of a GameStop, you know how the TV looks. And they're like, "Hello, GameStop employees. We know we underpay you, and never, I'm not going on that spiel. Anyways, we're there because Destiny, the first Destiny is about to come out, right? Which came out in 2014, so about 7 years ago. And there was an exclusive shader, basically, if you pre-ordered with GameStop, was the whole announcement. But at the time, that was massive news. Now, obviously, this has nothing to do with the story I'm getting into. It's just the precursor, basically. So I'm sitting there, we're watching this. I'm super geeked for Destiny. It's made by Bungie, the people that made Halo back in the day. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm watching this, and my buddy has a bag, right? And I'm like, what's in the bag? Did you bring some food or something? And they go, "Don't worry about it." Okay. So as something happens, and I end up asking my boss, and I'm like, that everybody was leaving, and I was sitting in the back. They said, "You can hang out a little bit if you want to." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. You know, I'll leave in a minute." Sitting in the back, we're just talking, and we're actually playing Hearthstone on our phones. We're going back and forth. We didn't really have any cards, but we're just playing with the default decks. And then I was like, "What is in this bag?" He's like, "Oh, he brought his Magic cards." And I was like, "Are you going to do a trick?" He's like, "No, no, no, no. Magic the Gathering." So there comes a couple things in life that are at a certain point in time like the ultimate like nerd weeb thing. And I'm like, "You guys are playing Magic? Bro, I didn't know. I've never met anybody that played Magic the Gathering up until this point. I thought it was like a weird like card shop game that people played. I didn't know it was massive." So he was like, "Here, just hang out with us. Try this out." My buddy lets me take one of his green decks. He had some Hydra that spawned a bunch of like 7/7 fucking Demigorgons on the thing. And I actually win my first ever game of Magic the Gathering. I picked up on the game pretty quickly and I understood how to play it. It's not that complex, but still. So fast forward from that point, months later, maybe a year, and my buddy's like, "Hey, I'm going to this draft." And the draft was for a set called Dragons of Tarkir. So I'm like, "I don't know what a draft is." He's like, "It's basically a tournament." I don't think it was a draft, but they give you like a small box that predetermined where you pick your two colors and you get a couple packs, some promo cards, and your land, and you build a deck based around that, and you go into this tournament. Maybe that's a draft. I feel like draft is where you all pass around the booster box and pull out the cards. I'm not sure. I don't remember. So we get to the tournament. I'm a little nervous. I paid to get in here. I don't really know what these cards coming out are, but I'm pretty stoked, right? I've been dumping money into this card game, but I don't have any of my cards with me. So I was initially going to run a blue deck because I like playing blue and red. That wasn't one of the default options, so I thought maybe black and green. Couldn't find nothing. So when I go up, finally my position, it was first come, first serve. Since I signed up so late, I was one of the last people to get to pick my little box. I walked up, all they really had left was red and black, and I think like white and something else, but I didn't like that color combination. I want to say maybe it was white and red or white and black. So I went with red and black. I come back, you set up all your cards, you got to take a picture of your cards so they know you didn't bring anything in. And, you know, it's kind of a pre-release tournament because these cards aren't technically out yet. So I get my cards, I make my deck, and I look at the schedule. My first game is a bye. So technically, I'm 1-0, right? Second game, I sit down at the table. I have to explain myself to this guy. I'm like, "Hey, man, it's my first time ever doing a tournament. Sorry if I'm a little awkward. I don't really understand how this stuff plays out." He goes, "No worries." He said, "Well, I'll talk you through it." So we play the game. He wins pretty easily. And I go to get up. And he's like, "No, no, no, no." So he's like, "Sit back down. It's the best 2 out of 3." I'm like, "Ow." Okay. So I sit back down. Best 2 out of 3. Second game goes a little better. I think at one point I actually was winning the game technically. I think I made a couple mistakes. He ends up winning. He beats me 2-0. 2 losses, you're out essentially. So I'm like, okay, well, damn, this sucks. So I go sit. We're waiting for the people to finish up their round. I got beat pretty early, and I'm really hoping to play my friend. And while this is a story about my first Magic the Gathering experience, really, it's also a story of a very fucking big ass. Just I don't want to say it; it'll spoil it. So I sit down at a table, and across from me is the only woman at this tournament. It's the only girl. Everybody was super weird about it the entire time. Just like you hear people like behind you. It's like the kids at the anime show when they show like the main girl on screen. Everybody's snickering and giggling. All right. So I sit down, we shake hands, and I'm like, hey, my name is Jeremy. It's nice to meet you. This is my first tournament. I'm technically 1-1, so if you beat me, I'm out. And she was like, I'm also 1-1. So we're having this conversation, and I forgot their name. I feel bad for that. I feel bad for this whole story, to be honest. So we go into the game, well, the ending of it. We go into the game, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like getting stuff together, and they pull out some dice, and I'm like, I don't have dice. So I'm sitting there. I don't have any dice, right? And we get ready to get into the game. It comes to a point where I need to like keep track of like some tokens or something. And they're like, hey, you can use some dice during this game. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Remind me. So I give them back at the end. And they're like, okay. So I had these transparent orange dice, like a whole set, D4 through D20. And basically like a little D&D set. So I'm sitting there going through, and I'm mopping the floor with this human. Like I figured out some combinations with my deck. I'm chaining shit together. And it gets to a point where I still have full life. And they have like 1 or 2 life left, right? They just have a bunch of mana, really. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, bad hand, essentially, right? You just got a bunch of mana, not that many monsters. It happens. We'll get into game number 2. No. It's part of the plan. The biggest Uno reverse card as she taps all of their land, and then they play this card. I don't remember what the card's called, but basically, we swapped life points. Swapped life points. They play a card. It was like a 1-1 flying with haste or some shit and beat me in the same turn. I thought 1 turn away from getting my first official like section, like round win. No, they beat me. Second game wasn't even a contest. They mopped the floor with me. So technically I went 0-4 between the games, and for the whole sets, I was technically 1-2 because I got a free win for the bye or whatever. And it was very sweet because at the end, you know, we're packing stuff up, and I was like, hey, good games. I appreciate it. And they were like, sorry I eliminated you from the tournament. I was like, nah, it's a learning experience. I got some cool cards out of this. I had fun. I was hoping to play my friend, yada, yada. We're just having a conversation, waiting for everybody else to finish up. We've already packed up. Now we're just sitting and talking. So I'm packing up the dice to give back to her. I have all the stuff in the baggie. I go to hand it back to them, and they're like, they look at them, and they go to hand them back, and like, I'll make you a deal. You can have these dice, but pull them back to themselves. You have to promise to come back here and play again, and to come back to the shop and play Magic. And I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, that sounds great. Like, I had so much fun. This would be fun to do again. And they give me the dice as a token of friendship, as a token of me getting my ass kicked. A very generous thing to do. Very sweet, because I didn't have any dice. I didn't have a way to keep track of nothing. So they give me these orange transparent die. It's the first die I've ever had. Before my D&D sets, before all the mini dice I bought, this is my first set of actual die. And they're really cool. And I think they're in my closet right now. I probably should have grabbed them for the story. But I ain't never been back to that place. I ain't been back to that place since. And I feel terrible. I feel horrible about it. So to this mystery person that I forgot your name, I appreciate the good games we played back in like 2016, 2017. I just want to say thank you for not roasting me for being a complete noob at the game. Thank you to the first guy for not being a dick the entire time. I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry I've never came back to play at that shop, but just know you are appreciated for giving me the die. Thank you. And yeah, that's life. But yeah, that's my little story. I wanted to share it with you guys. And I think on that note, I'm going to go ahead and head out. But before I do, let me know your favorite Magic the Gathering moment that you've ever had. I think my favorite one was probably getting wombo comboed like that. Or we had a white deck that we tried out that I ended up the game with like 150 life. That was pretty fun. I honestly think my favorite moment was I had this whale card that really couldn't have any damage done to it. And the reaction of my friends, we were playing like a 3-headed dragon, and the reaction of them when I played that card and they read it about how they couldn't do nothing and basically had to forfeit. Also, probably one of my favorite moments. So share with that and share your favorite card as well. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and head out. I have links and everything in the description box down below. Playlist up on screen. As always, check back for gameplays, commentaries, news, and updates. Later, nerds.